My pregnant wife left me for her ex, then tried to come back after giving birth, but the baby wasn't mine. Imagine this. Your wife is 6 months pregnant. You're building a nursery together, and life feels perfect, until one morning, she's gone. No fight, no warning. She's back with her ex months later. She gives birth and suddenly wants to come home, saying she made a mistake. You take her back, because love makes fools of us all, until you find out the baby isn't yours. Hey, everyone. I'm Ethan, 30, my wife. Well, we'll see what word fits by the end of this. Lily, 28. We were that couple people posted about. Cute apartment, baby on the way, shared playlists, matching sneakers at doctor visits. I cooked through morning sickness. We picked names together. I painted the nursery while she told me the crib should face positive energy. We argued over stroller colors like it mattered to world peace. I thought we were solid. Here's the twist that knocked the wind out of me. At 6 months pregnant, Lily packed a weekend bag and moved out. No fight, no warning. She left me a note on the kitchen counter that said, "I need space to think. Don't call." By sunset, I learned where she went, from a mutual friend's Instagram story of a backyard bonfire. Lily's ex, Mark, 31, had his arm around her like the last 3 years didn't happen. She wasn't crying. She looked relieved. The first sign of trouble in hindsight? Little things I excused as pregnancy turbulence. Late night, walks to clear her head. Her phone living face down like it was shy. A new lock code after I ran to the store for ginger tea. She started saying I was clingy when I asked to come to appointments. I told myself hormones were bridge trolls that would move along if I paid emotional tolls on time. I paid. They stayed. Lily's family is its own sitcom. Her mom, Diane, speaks in inspirational quotes, but uses them like bumper cars. Her brother, Kyle, has big opinions and small follow-through. He calls it consulting. They loved me when I picked up tabs and assembled furniture. The night Lily left, Diane called to say, "Sweetie, love is a journey, not a destination." I said, "She's pregnant." Diane sighed. "That's why she needs to center herself." Kyle texted, "Don't be controlling, bro." I was alone with a half-built crib and a stack of parenting for beginners. Days turned into weeks. I kept going to work, kept washing tiny onesies I bought on sale, like momentum might convince reality to behave. Then, 2 months later, Lily texted at 3 a.m. "I'm in labor." I sped to the hospital. Mark was there. He nodded like we were coworkers on different shifts. I waited in the hallway, hands shaking, while monitors beeped behind a door that wouldn't open for me. By morning, a nurse asked, "Dad?" and looked over my shoulder. Mark stepped forward. I can still hear my own breath in that quiet. Then Lily sent him home and asked to see me, said she'd made a terrible mistake and wanted to come back. She cried, said she missed my steadiness, said the house felt like safety. I said yes, because I thought forgiveness could build a bridge faster than hurt could burn it. We brought home a tiny, perfect human. I set up a bassinet by our bed. For 48 hours, I believed we'd pulled off a miracle, until the first night she whispered in the dark, "I can't sleep. I'm going for a quick drive." And her phone vibrated on the nightstand with a message from M. "I'm downstairs." I froze when I saw that text glowing in the dark. "I'm downstairs." The name on the screen was just the letter M, but I didn't need a detective to know who it was. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like gravity had turned personal. I didn't say a word. I just lay there, listening as Lily quietly grabbed her keys, humming under her breath like she was running an errand instead of sneaking out at 1 a.m. I waited 5 minutes, heart pounding, before I got up and looked out the window. And there he was, Mark, standing next to his truck, hands in his pockets, smiling up toward our apartment. The same man who'd been holding her hand when I wasn't allowed into the delivery room. They didn't drive off immediately. She walked up to him, and they just stood there talking. Close. Too close. She touched his arm once, then twice. Then he leaned in. That's when I stopped watching. I felt something inside me snap. Not rage, not grief. Something quieter. Something colder. When she came back 40 minutes later, I pretended to be asleep. She slipped into bed, smelling faintly of his cologne. The same scent that had been all over her hoodie when she came back from clearing her head weeks earlier. She curled up beside me, like nothing had happened, whispering, "I'm glad we're okay again." The next morning, I made pancakes and coffee and acted normal. I even kissed her forehead before leaving for work. She smiled like I'd just forgiven the universe. But I wasn't forgiving anymore. I was planning. At lunch, I called my friend Derek. He's the quiet type who handles corporate security for a living. I asked him for advice, told him just enough to make him serious. By the end of the day, he'd installed a simple camera app on my phone that could link to one hidden in our living room smoke detector. He didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer answers. That evening, Lily was full of cheer. She made dinner, laughed too loud at sitcoms, played the role perfectly. The same woman who'd sworn, just 3 days earlier, that she'd cut all contact with her ex. After she went to bed, I checked the footage from that afternoon. There she was, standing in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, saying, "No, he doesn't suspect a thing. He's being sweet, like always. Yeah, I'll sneak out again tomorrow. Just meet me where we parked last time." Tomorrow. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, memorizing the sound of her breathing and the tiny sigh she made every few minutes. I'd loved that sound once. The next day, she left right on cue, told me she was running to the grocery store. I watched her drive off, waited 5 minutes, then followed. She didn't go to the store. She went to a cheap roadside diner outside town. And when I parked 2 cars away, I saw Mark's truck already there. I don't know what I expected. Tears, guilt, maybe even some twisted goodbye. But they were laughing. She reached across the table, touching his hand like she'd never left him, like our home and baby didn't exist. When she leaned in to kiss him, I snapped a photo on my phone. Not out of revenge, but because I needed to stop lying to myself. That evening, she came home with grocery bags, an alibi wrapped in normalcy. "Long line," she said, smiling. "Yeah," I said, forcing calm. "I bet." She tilted her head, suspicious. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said. "Not yet." Her eyes narrowed, but she shrugged it off. And in that moment, I realized she wasn't worried about being caught. She was worried about losing control of the story. But that was about to change. The next morning, Lily acted like the world was back on her side. She made breakfast, kissed the baby's head, even joked about us finally feeling like a family again. The way she said it, soft, casual, like she wasn't sneaking out to see another man hours earlier, was almost impressive. She could lie like breathing. I played along. I asked about her grocery trip. She smiled brightly. "Oh, they were out of half the things on the list," she said, shaking her head. "This town's stores are terrible." I nodded. "Yeah, especially that diner on Highway 14. I hear they're always out of morals too." Her smile froze. The color drained from her face. "What?" I held up my phone. "Want to explain this?" Her eyes widened at the photo. Her and Mark, laughing, his hand on hers. For a moment, she looked like a statue, still, cold, calculating. Then she went for her script. "Ethan, this isn't what it looks like." I almost laughed. "You really need to stop saying that. You're starting to sound like a bad movie." She launched into a performance worthy of an audience. "We were just talking. I told him we couldn't be together. I needed to say it face to face. I didn't want to lie to you anymore." "Except you already were," I said quietly. Her voice trembled. "Please, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was confused. You've been distant, and I—" "Stop." I raised my hand. "Don't blame me for your choices." That's when the tears came. Real or not, I couldn't tell. She slid off her chair and dropped to her knees, clutching my arm. "Please, Ethan. I love you. I made a mistake. Don't take my baby away from me. I'll end it. I swear on everything I love." "You already did," I said, my voice breaking. But she wasn't done. She crawled closer, whispering like we were sharing a secret. "You don't understand how lonely I was. You were always at work. You never looked at me the same way. And Mark, he reminded me of who I was before all this." There it was, the confession and the justification in one breath. I just stared at her. The woman I'd adored, who'd once cried happy tears over our wedding vows, was now bargaining for forgiveness while twisting the knife she'd already driven into us. When I didn't respond, her tone changed again. "So what now? You're going to leave me? Break up this family because you're too proud to forgive?" I swallowed hard. "You already broke it." She froze. I could see the realization flicker in her eyes. That for once, she'd pushed too far. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. I turned and walked to the nursery. Our baby was asleep, soft breaths filling the quiet. I stood there for a long time, just watching her. That tiny person didn't ask for any of this. She deserved peace. That night, Lily packed a small bag to clear her head. She said she'd stay at her mom's. I didn't stop her. I just said, take your time. When the door closed behind her, I sat in the empty living room, staring at the wedding photo on the wall. The two people in that picture looked like strangers now. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You should know she's been seeing him since before she left you the first time. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. The sender? Mark's ex-girlfriend. And just like that, I realized I hadn't reached the bottom of this story yet. There were still skeletons waiting to be dug up. When I read that message, I sat there staring at it until the screen dimmed. Since before she left you the first time. Those words hit like ice water. I typed back before I could think. Who is this? A few seconds later came the reply. I'm Kara. I was with Mark for 6 years. I thought you should know the truth. We talked for an hour that night. Kara didn't sound angry, just tired, like someone who'd been carrying a secret too long. She told me that Lily had been messaging Mark while we were still newlyweds. That she'd met him for lunch, as friends, before she ever got pregnant. That every time Lily fought with me, she'd go crying to Mark about how I didn't understand her. And the kicker? When Lily left me while pregnant, Kara was still living with Mark. Lily had told her, you can't give him what I can. She'd walked right into another woman's home and destroyed it like it was nothing. I thanked Kara for telling me, though my hands were shaking so hard I could barely hit send. The next morning, Lily called. I'm staying at Mom's for a few days, she said, her voice low and tired. We need space. I know, I said. Take all the space you want. She hesitated. You sound calm. I am, I said. And I meant it. Because anger had burned off, leaving something colder behind, clarity. Later that day, I drove to her mom's house. Diane answered the door with her usual dramatic sigh. Ethan, darling, can't this wait? Lily's been crying all morning. I said evenly, it can't. When I stepped inside, Lily was sitting on the couch, still in her pajamas. She looked up, startled. Ethan, what are you? I interrupted, holding up my phone. I spoke with Kara. Her face went pale, then red. Who? Mark's ex. The woman you helped destroy, just like you did to me. She opened her mouth, but I kept going. She told me everything. The lunches, the secret messages, how long it's been going on. How you told her you were carrying his child before you even knew for sure. Diane gasped. Lily's voice cracked. That's not true. She's lying because she hates me. Mark and I were over. Stop, I said sharply. You can't talk your way out of this one. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Lily's mom whispered, Sweetheart, is the baby even? Don't you dare. Lily snapped, suddenly standing. Don't act like I'm some villain. You never liked Ethan. You said he was too safe, too boring. Diane blinked. I said you needed stability. Lily threw her hands up. You said I should marry for peace, not passion. So I did. And now everyone hates me for wanting both. I just stared at her. Even now, she couldn't take responsibility. Every excuse, every word was about what someone else had made her do. Finally, I said quietly, you know what the sad part is? I believed in you. I defended you to everyone. And you turned every ounce of love I gave you into an alibi. Lily's lip trembled. I'm sorry, Ethan. Please. But I was already walking toward the door. Diane didn't stop me. She just sat there, looking at her daughter like she was seeing her for the first time. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed again. It was my lawyer, confirming the paternity test I'd requested. For the first time since this nightmare began, I smiled. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally wanted the truth more than I wanted the marriage. The results came in a plain envelope 2 weeks later. No warning, no call, just an unassuming piece of paper that would decide the rest of my life. I sat in my car outside the office for a long time before opening it. I thought about the first time Lily told me she was pregnant. The way her hands shook as she held the test, the tears in her eyes, the way I dropped to my knees, promising I'd never let anything happen to them. I wanted to believe those moments still meant something. But the paper didn't care about memories. It was blunt, clinical, and final. Probability of paternity, 0%. The world tilted. It was like someone had unplugged the sound from the universe. I wasn't just reading about betrayal anymore. I was reading about the death of the life I thought I had. When I got home, Lily was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. She smiled when she saw me, like everything was fine. Hey, you're home early. Yeah, I said quietly. Had an interesting day. She tilted her head, curious. Oh, I slid the envelope across the counter. Go ahead. Open it. Her eyes darted between me and the paper. What is this? Just read it. She hesitated, then tore it open. As she scanned the page, her face drained of color. She dropped it like it burned. No, she whispered. No, that's not possible. It's possible, I said. It's science. Her hands started shaking. They must have mixed something up. They didn't. She started crying then, but not the kind of tears that come from sorrow. These were frantic, panicked. Ethan, please listen. I didn't know. I swear I thought. You thought it was his. I finished for her. And you were right. She covered her mouth. Please don't tell anyone. Please. Why? I asked. So you can keep playing the part? So everyone can keep believing you just made a small mistake? She dropped to her knees, clutching my hand. Ethan, I love you. You're my family. You're the only person who ever made me feel safe. I pulled my hand away. You don't love anyone. You just hate being alone. She sobbed harder, crawling closer, trying to catch my eyes. I can fix this, I swear. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. I stepped back. You already did. That night, I packed a small bag and left. I didn't tell her where I was going. I didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't promise revenge. But I made a quiet vow to myself. I would stop being her safety net. She could fall as far as her lies would take her. Over the next few days, her calls came constantly. Then came texts from her mother, her brother, even a few of her friends, all asking me to be the bigger person. I ignored them all. Then one morning, I got a message that made me pause. You should know she's already seeing him again. They're together. It was Kara, Mark's ex. I just stared at the message and started laughing. Not out of humor, but disbelief. After everything, after all the tears and begging, she was right back where it started. It didn't hurt this time. It just confirmed what I already knew. Some people never change because they don't think they need to. But I wasn't broken anymore. I was calm, focused, and ready to make sure she'd never lie about me again. After I got Kara's message, something inside me shifted. It wasn't rage anymore. It was precision. I didn't want to scream or destroy things. I wanted clarity, the kind of truth that can't be spun or undone. Lily's entire life had always been about control, the image, the attention, the sympathy. Every apology came with a side of manipulation. Every tear was a prop. She needed to be the victim in every story, even when she was the one lighting the fire. So I stopped fighting. I started documenting. Every text, every call, every time she showed up at my parents' house sobbing about how cruel I'd become. Every message from Mark's number that accidentally synced to our old cloud account. I built a folder, dates, screenshots, receipts. I called it The Truth. Then I waited. The perfect moment came when Diane, her mother, decided to host a family dinner to help everyone find closure. I was politely invited because, as Diane put it, forgiveness is part of healing. I agreed to come. I even offered to bring dessert. When I walked in, Lily's entire family was there. Her mother, her brother Kyle, her aunt, even two of her friends from before the pregnancy. Lily looked nervous, dressed like she was going to a job interview, not a dinner. I could see the hope flicker in her eyes when I arrived. She stood up. Ethan, I'm so glad you came. I smiled politely. Wouldn't miss it. Dinner started awkward but civil. Diane did most of the talking, long speeches about forgiveness, family, and rising above pain. Kyle threw in a few barbed jokes about fragile male egos. Lily sat quietly, occasionally glancing at me with those wide, practiced eyes. After dessert, Diane said, maybe it's time we all talked openly. Lily's been doing therapy. She wants to make things right. I nodded. That's great. Actually, I brought something that might help with that. I set a small USB drive on the table. Lily frowned. What's that? Closure, I said. Kyle laughed. What, a PowerPoint? Kind of, I said, plugging it into the TV. More like highlights. The screen flickered to life. Timestamps, screenshots, photos, messages. Her voice on a recording saying, he doesn't suspect a thing. A message from her to Mark. I told him it's his, but he's too kind to question it. Another where she bragged to a friend about how she could get away with anything if I cry hard enough. The room fell silent. Diane gasped. Lily, tell me this isn't real. Lily's eyes darted wildly. He's twisting things. You're taking it out of context. Kyle looked furious. Context. You literally said it was Mark's kid. She jumped up, knocking over a glass. You don't understand. He's doing this to humiliate me. I stood calmly. No, Lily. You did that all by yourself. Her mom was crying now. Her aunt just shook her head. Even Kyle, her biggest defender, looked disgusted. Lily fell to her knees, sobbing, reaching for me. Ethan, please. I said I was sorry. Why would you do this? Because you never stopped lying, I said softly. And you deserve to live in the same truth you gave me. I left the USB on the table and walked out. Behind me, I could still hear her crying, her mother yelling, her brother swearing. But it all sounded far away, like background noise in a movie I'd already stopped watching. For the first time in months, I wasn't angry. I was free. By the next morning, word about what had happened at that dinner spread faster than wildfire. Small towns are merciless with gossip, and the story grew with every retelling. I didn't fuel it. I didn't post, didn't talk, didn't even hint. But the silence around me did the work for me. Lily's perfect image, the one she'd built on charm and sympathy, cracked overnight. Her friends stopped replying to her messages. Her job quietly let her go to focus on family. Even her brother Kyle, who'd once defended her like a knight with a broken sword, sent me a text saying, she needs help. I don't know who she is anymore. Diane called me 3 days later. Her voice was shaky, brittle. Ethan, she's devastated. You didn't have to go that far. I took a deep breath. She destroyed our family and lied about a child's paternity for years. I think we passed too far a long time ago. Silence. Then she said quietly, you're right. I just wish she'd listened to me when she had the chance. When I hung up, I realized she wasn't defending Lily anymore. Even her mother had given up. 2 weeks later, Lily showed up at my apartment. No warning, no makeup, just swollen eyes and shaking hands. She looked smaller somehow, like the world had finally caught up to her. I don't want money, she said. I just wanted to see you. I stayed silent. She twisted her fingers together. Everyone hates me now. Mom won't answer my calls. Kyle blocked me. Mark, he's gone. She gave a bitter laugh. He said I was too much drama. Can you believe that? I didn't respond. She stepped closer. I lost everything, Ethan. But I never stopped loving you. You have to know that. I looked at her for a long moment. You didn't love me, Lily. You loved what I did for you. And when I stopped fixing your messes, you called it cruelty. Her face crumpled. I made mistakes. I was stupid, selfish. But I can't do this alone. I shook my head. You're going to have to. She broke down then, sobbing, apologizing, dropping to her knees again like that first confrontation all over. But this time, I didn't feel pity. I just felt tired. After she left, I sat by the window for a long time. For months I'd thought revenge would make me feel alive again. Instead, it made me realize how empty the entire story had become. I didn't regret exposing her. She'd earned that reckoning, but it didn't heal me. It just closed the book. The next day, I packed a bag, called my boss, and said I needed a few weeks off. I didn't know where I was going yet. I just knew I needed somewhere quiet. I ended up driving toward the coast, following the long highways until the air smelled like salt and everything around me looked like freedom. Somewhere between two sleepy beach towns, I found a small rental cabin overlooking the ocean. I turned off my phone and just listened to the waves for hours. For the first time in years, there were no lies to decode, no apologies to dissect, no noise at all. It was just me, the version of myself that had survived. The first night in that cabin, I couldn't sleep. The place was small, one creaky bed, a table, the sound of the ocean moving in and out like steady breathing. I sat on the porch watching the waves crash against the rocks until sunrise. Somewhere between the dark and the morning light, the noise inside me finally went quiet. For months, my whole life had been reaction, to lies, to texts, to tears. But here, there was nothing left to react to. No Lily, no Mark, no questions I didn't want the answers to. Just the smell of salt and a notebook I hadn't opened in years. I started writing again. At first, it was just lists, things I'd learned, things I'd lost, things I wanted back. Then sentences turned into paragraphs. I wrote about the day I met Lily, the way she laughed, the way I believed it meant something. I wrote about her betrayal without anger, just as a record of what I'd survived. The mornings became routine. Run along the beach, eat, write, walk. At night, I cooked simple meals and watched the sky turn red over the water. Healing didn't come as some grand epiphany. It arrived in small, quiet moments. One afternoon, I met Claire. She was a photographer staying in the cabin next door, working on a project about coastal towns. We started with polite hellos, then coffee, then long talks about everything except the past. She had a calm energy, the kind that doesn't need fixing or explaining. One evening, while we sat on the sand watching her camera timer flash, she said, "You look like someone learning how to breathe again." "I think I am," I admitted. She smiled. "Then don't stop." We didn't become anything right away. There were no grand gestures, no promises, no rushing to fill the silence. Just a kind of peace that felt new to me. By the third week, my phone had stopped buzzing. Lily's number went from familiar to irrelevant. The world I'd left behind felt distant, like a bad movie you can finally turn off. When it was time to go home, I didn't feel dread. I felt ready. I packed my things, looked at the ocean one last time, and thought, maybe the storm was the only way to learn to love the calm. Driving back, I passed through miles of open land, fields, gas stations, sleepy diners, and I realized something that stuck with me. Forgiveness isn't about letting the person who hurt you off the hook. It's about letting yourself out of the cage they built in your head. By the time I reached my city again, I wasn't the same man who had left. I wasn't the betrayed husband anymore. I was just Ethan, a man who finally knew his worth didn't depend on someone else's loyalty. 2 months after I came back from the coast, life started to feel normal again. The apartment no longer felt like a crime scene. It felt like mine. My routines were simple: work, runs by the river, weekend calls with my parents. Evenings were quiet, sometimes lonely, but in a peaceful way. Then, late one Friday night, someone knocked on my door. The sound was soft but steady, almost hesitant. When I opened it, there she was. Lily. She looked nothing like the woman I used to know. Her hair was unkempt, her eyes red from crying, her hands trembling around a folded piece of paper. "Please, Ethan," she whispered. "Just 5 minutes." I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to close the door and be done. But something in her face, exhaustion maybe, or just the last remnants of the person I once loved, made me step aside. She walked in slowly, scanning the place like she was seeing it for the first time. "You changed things," she said quietly. "I changed everything," I replied. She nodded, staring at the floor. "I deserve that." The silence stretched until she pulled the paper from her pocket and handed it to me. "It's a letter. I wrote it in therapy. They said I should read it aloud, but I can't, so here." I unfolded it, but she stopped me. "Not now? Please, read it when I leave." Her voice broke as she spoke. "I ruined everything. I lied. I hurt you. I hurt myself. I thought if I could control the story, I wouldn't have to face what I'd done. But I do now, every day. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I finally see what I destroyed." I looked at her for a long moment. She was crying again, but this time there was no performance, no desperation, just grief. "You should have seen it sooner," I said quietly. "I know," she whispered. "I'm sorry." I nodded toward the door. "Goodbye, Lily." She hesitated, like she wanted to say more, then finally whispered, "You were the best thing that ever happened to me." And then she was gone. I stood there in the quiet, holding the letter, wondering if I even wanted to read it. I did, later, sitting on the couch with a cup of coffee. It wasn't an apology so much as a confession. How her need for attention came from childhood wounds. How she sabotaged anything good because she never believed she deserved it. How she wished she'd loved me the way I loved her. When I finished, I folded the paper neatly and slid it into a box with a few old photos. Not out of nostalgia, just closure. That night, I called my mom. She didn't ask about Lily. She didn't have to. She just said, "You sound lighter." "I am," I said, for the first time in a long time. And I meant it. It's been a year since that last knock on my door. I kept Lily's letter in a drawer for a while, but one morning I woke up, read it one last time, and shredded it. It wasn't anger. I just realized I didn't need her words anymore to understand my own life. The divorce finalized quietly. No fireworks, no drama. We didn't even see each other in court. Our lawyers handled everything. The baby, who turned out to be Mark's, is being raised by her and her mother. I send gifts on birthdays because a child doesn't deserve the fallout of adults' choices, but I keep my distance. Sometimes people ask if I'd ever take Lily back if she truly changed. The answer is simple. You can't rebuild trust on ashes. Love might forgive, but it shouldn't forget what burned it down. I didn't stay bitter. I got busy. I picked up new habits. Hiking, photography, even cooking something more ambitious than scrambled eggs. I signed up for volunteer work with a coastal cleanup program. Funny how water keeps finding me when I need it most. And yes, I still talk to Claire. She sends me photos from her travels, and sometimes we meet for coffee when she's in town. We never talk about the past, only what we're building now, quietly, slowly, honestly. My parents say I look younger now. My dad jokes, freedom is the best skincare. Maybe he's right. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal doesn't define you, it refines you. The day Lily left, I thought my life was over. Now I know it was just changing shape. Here's what I'd tell anyone reading this who's standing where I once stood. Don't beg someone to stay who's already halfway out the door. Don't mistake comfort for love. And don't lose yourself trying to keep someone who doesn't know how to hold you. The real healing started when I stopped trying to prove I was the good one. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. I just needed to live. Now, when I wake up, the first thing I hear isn't silence or regret. It's music playing softly from the radio, coffee brewing, sunlight spilling across a clean kitchen table. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just shows up one morning, sits down next to you, and says, "You made it." And for the first time in years, I finally believe it. I have many other stories. Go to my channel, subscribe so you don't lose us. Give me a thumbs up.